Welcome to the Explainer. Okay, today we're going to build a powerful investment portfolio, one that's designed to outperform 90% of investors. And the best part? We're going to do it with just 3 simple, low-cost Vanguard ETFs. All right, let's jump right in.
But first things first, I want to start with a really important question, one that you've got to ask yourself as an investor. Are you really getting the most out of your money?
Because, when you look at the data, it's kind of shocking. A staggering 9 out of 10 investors are working with suboptimal portfolios. So what does that mean? Well, it means they're either taking on way too much risk, or maybe even worse, not enough risk to even keep up with inflation.
So that's the problem. But what if there was a better way? A really streamlined solution? A way to build a super efficient portfolio with just 3 funds? The whole idea is to slash fees and, set yourself up to outperform the vast majority of other investors over the long run.
Okay, so the strategy we're talking about is built on a classic model called core satellite. It's actually a pretty simple concept. Just picture this. You've got a big, stable foundation. That's your core. And then, orbiting around it, you have these smaller, more specialized funds. Those are your satellites. The real genius of this is the balance, right? Your core keeps you anchored to the market's steady growth, while those satellites, well, they let you make some more targeted bets without putting the whole ship at risk.
All right, let's get into the nitty-gritty. We'll start with that first piece, the absolute foundation of your portfolio, the Vanguard S&P 500 ETF. You'll know it by its ticker symbol, VOO.
So, what's VOO's job? It's simple, but it's also incredibly powerful. It basically gives you a piece of the 500 biggest, most successful companies in America. You're essentially betting on the U.S. economy as a whole. In Wall Street speak, they call this capturing market beta. You're just riding the market's overall upward trend. And you know what makes it so brilliant? It's a self-correcting index. That means when a company starts to slip, it gets dropped. And when a new superstar comes along, it gets added, all automatically. So you're always invested in the top players. And here's the proof in the pudding. Just look at its historical power. Over the last 10 years, VOO has delivered an amazing average return of nearly 15% per year. That's some serious performance. This right here, this is the bedrock of our whole strategy.
Okay, so we have our foundation. Now let's add our first satellite. This is the fun part. This is the growth engine, the piece designed to really accelerate your wealth, the Vanguard Information Technology ETF, or VGT. Think of VGT as a direct bet on the future. It's what we call our alpha generator. And if you're not familiar, alpha in investing is just a fancy word for beating the market, not just keeping up with it. And VGT goes for it by concentrating on around 320 of the most innovative tech companies on the planet. We're talking about the big guns, NVIDIA, Apple, Microsoft, the companies that are literally building the future with things like AI and cloud computing.
Now check this out. The difference is just wow. Remember that solid 15% from the broad market? Well, VGT delivered a massive 22% average annual return over that same decade. That, my friends, is the power of a dedicated growth engine. It's the turbocharger for your portfolio.
But we all know the deal, right? High growth usually comes with some pretty wild swings, high volatility. And that brings us to our final, crucial piece of the puzzle. This is our defensive shield, the one designed to protect your portfolio when things get choppy. It's called VIG, the Vanguard Dividend Appreciation ETF.
So what's VIG's secret sauce? It's all about quality. See, it doesn't just chase companies with the highest dividends right now. Instead, it looks for companies that have a proven track record of increasing their dividends for at least 10 years in a row. Now think about that. That's a huge signal that a company is stable, profitable, and knows how to handle itself, even when the economy gets rough.
And this is where it all comes together. Look at how these 2 satellites, growth and defense, behave differently when things get tough. Let's take the rough market of 2022. Our high-flying tech fund, VGT, it took a big hit, down almost 30%. Ouch. But our defensive shield, VIG, it held up so much better, down only about 10%. That is exactly what we mean by downside protection.
Okay, so now we have our 3 building blocks, right? We've got the market core, the growth satellite, and the defensive satellite. So the big question is, how do we put them together? Let's look at how you can build a portfolio that's tailored specifically for you. Because let's be real, the magic isn't just in owning these 3 funds. The real key is getting the mix right, adjusting how much you put in each one based on your age, where you are in life, and frankly, how much risk you're okay with. So to make this super clear, let's walk through 3 different blueprints. We'll start with an aggressive model, perfect for someone in their peak earning years.
Then, we'll look at a more balanced approach for mid-career, and finally, a preservation model for anyone who's getting close to or is already in retirement. First up, the aggressive model. This is for someone with plenty of time on their side. You can see we're leaning heavily into that VGT growth engine, a full 35%. Yeah, it's going to be more volatile, but the goal here is maximum long-term growth.
Okay, now let's say you're a bit older. You move to the balanced model. Notice the shift? We're trimming back that growth exposure from 35 down to 20%. And we're beefing up our defense, taking VIG up to 25%. The name of the game here is starting to protect and lock in some of those gains you've already made.
And last but not least, the preservation model. Here, we're really leaning on that VIG quality shield. It's now a huge 40% chunk of the portfolio. The number one priority is protecting your capital and generating some income. But importantly, we're still keeping a small 10% slice in VGT, just to make sure your money keeps growing faster than inflation.
And you know, the real beauty of this whole strategy is just how efficient it is. First, the fees are incredibly low. We're talking a tiny fraction of a percent. Second, because they're ETFs, they're generally more tax efficient than old school mutual funds. And maybe the most important thing of all, a simple automated plan like this helps you take emotion out of the equation. And trust me, emotion is almost always an investor's worst enemy.
So that kind of leaves us with one final thought, right? We live in this world of endless complexity. Everyone's chasing the next hot stock, the next complicated strategy. But what if the ultimate advantage, the most powerful tool you have, is just a simple, disciplined, and efficient plan like this one? Something to think about.